The time is 5:30 p.m. on Monday, October 7th. October 23rd, 2023 at 5:30. Let me just get my right agenda. Oh, they all say 7 p.m. That's why I'm confused. We got it, guys. Okay, we're gonna start first with city updates. So Ms. Solano, please take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council, and Mayor Gradisar. There are a few updates this evening. Just first is a reminder that City Council does have a 2024 budget work session tomorrow in the chambers at 5:30 p.m. That was, I think, approved and agreed to at your recommendation and direction. We do only have 1 hour and 15 minutes at most. There is a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that is scheduled to begin in the chambers here at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. But from the agenda so far, it appears like that time frame will be sufficient for to get through the whatever items you bring up this evening, as we don't have a deep agenda for tomorrow. And then secondly, the mayor and the city attorney were hoping to schedule a city council executive session next Monday, October 30th at 5:30 to 6, if that meets with your schedules, with respect to an economic development prospect, and then a 6 to 7 work session with Pueblo Urban Renewal. There are only 2 items that would be on the agenda next week, but I can pause a minute to see if that's something that could be fit into all your schedules, or if we need to talk with the city attorney to find an alternative date for that.
Yeah, so it's been next Monday is the 5th Monday of the month, so it's been canceled for quite a while. I know that I personally have a schedule conflict on October 30th. There's been a suggestion actually to see if we can move our executive session tomorrow, since we're already going to be here. Would that be a possibility?
We'd have to, our city attorney, is there sufficient time to notice that executive session for tomorrow evening?
No, we'll be past the 24-hour mark. We at least need 24 hours to notice.
And given that the other agenda item was the PURE 2024 budgetary requests, can that be then moved to tomorrow?
When Tracy spoke with Urban Renewal earlier, I think that they wait a bit later in the year to determine, or in the process to determine what their vendor fee budget might be, depending on, I think, what you do with the city's budget before they usually present. So we're about a month early, I believe, than our normal vendor, our budget meeting for Urban Renewal. I think the request went out to them today, and that's how it ended up in your plan.
Yeah, it says, Ms. Solano, that it's October 30th on here.
Yeah, they were a bit early though in their process to determine what budget they bring, but we sent out the request in the event they were ready early.
Mayor.
The work session we're planning is really not over Urban Renewal's budget. It's with respect to the urban renewal law and proposed urban renewal districts that we want to have a work session with council and explain to council what these urban renewal districts are about, what's going on. We've reached not an impasse, but we have some issues that we have to resolve with urban renewal with respect to some of these urban renewal districts. And we thought the best way to do that is to invite the taxing entities, invite urban renewal, and have presentations from everybody to the city council with respect to everybody's positions on some of these issues, so that you're well informed about what's going on. Some of these involve big dollars. The West Urban Renewal area, for instance, is $58 million in tax increment over the next 25 years. How should that money be spent, and who should decide how that money should be spent? Those are some of the issues that we think we need to work through with city council, so that that's why we want to schedule this work session. Sooner rather than later, but we wouldn't be ready to do it tomorrow for sure. And nor would Urban Renewal, nor would the other taxing entities. If the 30th doesn't work, we have to kick it off till the 6th. That's the night before the election, but you know, I guess.
Are we good with the 6th?
Has somebody notified Urban Renewal of the agenda for this? Because I just had a finance committee meeting, and as of 1 o'clock, I'm not sure that they all knew. Of course, that's just the finance committee that I was at.
We,
I'm-
we did provide notice, Counselor Flores. We did
Oh.
provide notice to Urban Renewal about our request to have the work session.
Okay, and so an agenda has been put together about what
Yes.
we're gonna talk about. Okay,
But, you know, to the extent that council wants to push it, we can always push the agenda as well.
yeah. You know, because we have, you know, we have two representatives on urban renewal and, so I'm concerned about what it is, the problem is. And if there is, maybe there isn't a problem, but, I'm concerned about, what we're gonna be talking about. So,
So just for all of council's benefit, just to sort of say it plainly, as a mayor, Urban Renewal has submitted for the city's review and approval 4 different urban renewal plans. After my review of the plans, I sent some formal responses to Urban Renewal, and there's been sort of some back and forth about to what extent Urban Renewal needs to or doesn't need to make the changes that were requested to be approved by the city. And so I think the mayor's intention was the best way to have that conversation is probably transparently with city council in a work session where Urban Renewal can provide its perspective, the city can provide its perspective after its review, and council can make its decision on how it would like to move forward.
okay, well, we'll have a robust discussion at the appropriate time.
I certainly hope so.
Okay,
Are we good to move the Pura as well as the executive session to November 6th? Counselor Martinez Ortega? Counselor Graham? Counselor Tencio? I'm a yes. Counselor Flores? Counselor Maestri. So let's, if that, given that that works for the majority of council, we will move forward with that. Ms. Solano, did you have anything else?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll continue with the updates. You all received an invitation to attend a ribbon cutting and a grand opening for the financial empowerment centers. The grant's in place, they're finally trained and hired, and it is tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Pueblo County Department of Human Services on the second floor, 320 West 10th. And it is one of the co-locations where they will be offering counseling services. So very proud that FEC session, those FEC locations are up and running with ribbon cutting tomorrow. And then I have a flyer here that's showing on the screen, a reminder to everyone, to our citizens, that the Waste Connections is still in the process of the half price dump fees this month. And we have one more week to take advantage of that, everyone, at the South Side Landfill on 5715 Colorado Highway 78. It will run through next Tuesday, October the 31st, for those wanting to take advantage of that half price dump. And I think I have there is no ARPA update this evening. We don't have any ARPA items on the city council agenda this evening. And then lastly, a quick thank you to Tracy and Alyssa in the mayor's office. We're sitting in new chairs for the chambers. The last time chairs were brought upstairs here was 2015. And so they've worked through. Mine is sitting a little low here. I can't see some of you, but we'll adjust that. So thank you to the budget and Tracy and Alyssa for coordinating the new chairs. And that does conclude city's updates. Do you have direction or questions for me?
Thank you, Ms. Solano, and thank you to Alyssa and Tracy for these shares. Questions from council?
anything,
Counselor Tencio, what?
anything?
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I've been working with Gene Latka and Trees Please in that group on some beautification projects in the city. A couple of months ago, city council agreed to allocate $1 million towards beautification projects. The mayor said we hadn't done anything about that because we didn't have a resolution to that effect. Is it okay if we bring forward a resolution for that project?
Mr. Hippolyte?
Yes, to the extent that Councilor Tencio would like that, if you can just send me the details on what needs to be in the resolution, I can certainly draft one and have one prepared.
Okay, yeah, because all of council agreed to it a couple of months ago. Nothing had been done.
I sincerely apologize. I probably might not have started yet. So
Yeah,
probably this is one of those that got lost in translation. So
Maybe.
I'll get that rectified.
that's all, that's fine.
I
as long as we
have an
do it.
update with respect to the historical perspective. It was a year ago about this time when Councilor Atencio suggested the $1 million for beautification. And then we also, council directed that we would take those projects one at a time, starting in 2023. And the one project completed is the one on Northern Avenue, or will be completed when they finish the installation of some infrastructure. And Stephen Meyer, the director for parks, he brought the list that the Streetscapes Committee presented to City Council to the ARPA internal committee last week to look at what the second item or project might be that can be funded by ARPA. But that's at least some historical perspective of where we are to date with those.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our first presentation today from the Pueblo Heritage Museum regarding their 2024 budget request. So can I have Ms. Jones to the podium? You're good.
I like her.
Good evening, everyone.
And Maral, you want to make sure your mic's on?
I was just getting too excited. There we go. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much again, as always, for giving your time. I know these are long nights for you, and so I just appreciate you all as always. My name is Maral Jones, and I'm the director at the Pueblo Heritage Museum. I'm a Puebloan, born and raised, extremely proud to be a part of this amazing community with rich culture, history, and heritage. I'm the mother of Leonidas and Zelda. I'm an author and also, again, the director at the Pueblo Heritage Museum. If you're here for the museum, please stand or raise your hand in honor of respecting their wishes here. Feel free to, hey. Yeah, we've got a little crowd here today. Thanks so much for being here. And I want to call in, go ahead and move to the next slide where Pueblo's story starts here. And moving on to the next slide, you'll see that I have some of my team members listed there, myself, Siavi Rose Stevens, Emily Wilson, our curator. She can go ahead and stand and wave. That's good. We've got several of our board members, a super active board. So if you're bored, feel free to stand or wave. Thank you so much for being here. And many volunteers and volunteer educators, feel free to stand or wave. So as you can see, we're really a big community, and I'm today so I can give you more context into our ask tonight. And oh, thank you. Got the magic remote here. And so this is following up for our non-departmental funding request. And so the Pueblo Heritage Museum is committed to preserving, celebrating, and illuminating the rich history of Pueblo and southeastern Colorado. And we also have our greater business name, nonprofit name, as a Southeastern Colorado Heritage Center, because we truly are more than a museum. We are truly a center for many people of all different beliefs to come together, see eye to eye, and I would even say a place of diplomacy and a lot of cultural healing. And so moving on here, let's see. The button isn't moving. Maybe I'm pointing it to the wrong place. Thank you. All right, so we'll just get cut straight to the chase because I know this is what you're really looking for. And on the next slide, I do itemize it quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and go back to that previous slide. Sorry, this remote's not working for me. So we had in our original proposal we gave to in June, the city of Pueblo financial assistance request of $125,000. And this is for several things, assisting with the salaries of key personnel, new positions of facilities and operations manager, a curator, both roles we've never had in a museum, and also looking at cleaning services and education even on how we can properly store artifacts. Those of you who've been there, you would know we actually have a huge array of actual artifacts ranging throughout history, even as far back as the year 1275, with authentic pictographs from this area, from Native American tribes, and even farther back. So we have a lot of amazing artifacts like Lucky the horse as well that we need to keep safe. And so we have that option, which is of course, our ideal option that we would love and invite for you to fund. And then option 2, we also had another option to throw out so that we could also offer a range of solutions for you guys to assist us. And at least $42,000 would help ensure so that we can go from what used to be 1 staff member, which was 2 for quite a while, and let us grow to 4 staff for the over 20,000 square foot of an old rail freight building, the Denver and Rio Grande Freight Building, which was changed into our location in early 2000s. And so go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. So this is the full itemization that I'm sure you're wanting to see. And so with option 1, as you can see, it breaks down per position. And we currently have both the 2 roles, facilities operations manager and curator, at very, very part-time. With our budget, we're allowed to, able to afford, but really we need them much, much more. And so we've never had a curator at a museum. And so some of you are aware of the museum world. That might seem kind of silly, but we've been a grassroots organization. I know Councilman Sarah Martinez came and visited us and was amazed to see everything that we had there and how we've kept it up with mostly volunteers and very small, sometimes even no staff. And so we're really out to change that, especially after some recent museum inspections that we got to have. We see that we have so much opportunity. We have a lot of great things going on in terms of the education that we offer to the community, the cultural space, and the history that we get to tell about Pueblo and southeastern Colorado, and a lot of room to grow in terms of actually getting to museum standards. And so, and then on that itemization of the option 1, you'll see also the amount for helping clean our artifacts and exhibits regularly. That's something we've struggled with, especially when we only had a staff of 1. And then also sponsoring of increase in pay for current employees so that we can continue, whether it's us or people in the future, to attract very qualified people in these roles. And then also a full upgrade of our archive building, which some of you may have seen. We lovingly call the old tin shed. And it's very unsafe and nowhere near museum standard. It was built in 1924 along with a building. We're celebrating our 100-year anniversary next year for our building. And so option 2, as you can see, the itemization is a little shorter, basically similar to the same up above, and just slightly truncated there with the amount. So those 2 options I invite you to consider. And anywhere in between, of course, option 1 is my number 1 ask, and truly invite that. And I honor the fact that you guys are all off trying to meet many people's needs. So we thought we'd offer an array of possibilities here. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Wonder if mine will work. Oh, I think it just worked now. All right, so this is just a little bit of fun history, of course. I've got to talk about our history a bit so you can see what amazing things you're funding. This is a building right after it was built in 1924. So we'll actually be having a new rotating exhibit. So sometime next year, with the help of CSU Pueblo history students and museum studies students, will be actually a living learning lab for those students. They'll actually be having their class there on site and actually helping us build part of a exhibit about the last 100 years of Pueblo and the founding of Pueblo. So that'll go where our Slovenian heritage exhibit is now in our rotating exhibit space. So we're always upgrading and changing. Cool, it's working now, thank you. And so again, this is a building today. You can see quite a bit has changed over the years. And we're just always creatively serving our local, national, and even global community. We started live streaming all of our events recently this year and reaching people around the world with our history and heritage of the local area. We go out to schools as well. We even support the art community and part of the First Ready Art Walk community, always empowering new artists, as well as in our gift shop, local economy through different artists and authors and that. And then we have walking tours. Some of you may have even been a part of the Ladies of the Night tours that we had earlier this year and that we've had in the past, learning about our deep, rich history during the 20s. here in Pueblo. And then again, just really amazing school visits and youth classes that we've become known for since early 2000s. We've been doing these legacy trunk and heritage education programs for many years. And I have teachers coming back to me, despite I'm new in the role, telling me amazing stories of people coming and doing presentations on the 1921 flood, about Native American education that you see here, my assistant Siavi Stevens and our volunteer Samuel Gallegos doing a presentation about the bison in that picture with these young people just earlier this year, teaching them cultural dances. And so we really make a huge impact. So I actually just wanted to show you that impact so you can truly see what an amazing organization that we are, truly grassroots in a city building, which we're extremely grateful for. And so in 2022, still recovering from everything in 2020, we had an impact of just over 3,000 individuals, as you can see through our various events and other ways that we reach people. And then moving forward this year, our projected by the end of this year is just over 8,600 individuals through students, museum admissions, memberships, community events. And we actually, in addition to what I've mentioned before, have a monthly Heritage Night, which is free to the community. We just had one about our Pride City Marching Band. We've had them in the past about Slovenian history and cuisine. That one was really well attended because the amazing pizza and klobasi that we had there. And we're also going to be having potentially up to 500 to 700 people coming to our Indigenous Fusion event coming up on November 3rd. I'll tell you about it at the end of this presentation. And our proposal for next year, given all of the growth that we're going to have, new exhibits we have coming in, we have people almost every other week now coming to me with new exhibits or small displays they'd like to have to show about their culture. German, the African American community is talking to us about even having a Kwanzaa event that they haven't ever had a consistent place for. And so, and there's even more things listed here, like a cool book we're writing about Lucky the horse. There's just so much we're doing, thankfully, with our regrowing volunteer base as well. And so our projected impact that we intend to have is just over 16,000 individuals. And I truly can see it near doubling every year after that if we keep going the trajectory with my leadership and many others creating sustainable processes. So that's why our ask, while to some might seem, why do they need that? We absolutely do, because we've been doing things on a shoestring budget, and it's time for us to really ask for what we need, given that we are really like the de facto museum of the community. So lastly, I'd love to invite you all and in the audience listening online to our Indigenous Fusion event, which is on Friday, November 3rd. It is a completely free museum admission day. Kid-friendly, kids are welcome. Please bring any items you'd like to put on our Dia de los Muertos altar to honor people in your life who've passed on. We'll have cultural dances. Pueblo Rocks will be there painting rocks with young people, and we'll make a giant rock snake all the way down our long building. And we'll be, most importantly, reopening our Native peoples, Indigenous peoples exhibit. And so that's really exciting, and also be inviting an artist who has art in that same style. And then we'll also, in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, be hosting Tonio Lefevre, who's also doing a mural for us. And he's a leader in the Indigenous and Chicano community. And he'll be telling us about the evolution of textiles in the Indigenous Southwest. And like I said, that's part of our free monthly Heritage Night. And this will be the last one of the year. So thank you so much for being here, listening to me. I invite any questions. And then I also do have some questions for y'all when we're complete. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Maral, and just the team that showed up to give their support to Pueblo Heritage Museum. Just a quick kudos to Maral, who really has since taken over leadership of the Pueblo Heritage Museum, has done a great job. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do. Questions from council? Councilor Flores?
You didn't mention the lore, your magazine.
Yeah, thank you for calling that in. Our collaborative organization just upstairs, the Pueblo County Historical Society, publishes the lore. And thank you for reminding me to give them some credit. They have been a huge part. They're one of our founding members, helping take that building from kind of an empty building that was alone for a while and empty to a beautiful center. So them, as well as several other organizations, were founding organizations with us. So we work hand in hand with them them, and they're just upstairs and have an amazing genealogical library. And they're one of the few publications every single month that they make. I highly recommend you subscribe and get the mailed Lore magazine that they make every month just about Pueblo history. I learn something new every time I pick that up, even though I was born and raised here.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, because I get my lore every month. And I have to read the whole thing. It's just fascinating, but I had thought that, that is something that should probably be on the city's website. It's not that long, and every month it gives the history.
great
Things that
idea.
I've learned. It's just amazing. Refresh my memory on the actual building that you're in. Who owns that building?
The city owns it,
That's
and I'll
what
be
I-
seeing you again very soon as we renew our lease. We're working with Andrew Hayes, Director of
Okay.
Public Works, to rework our lease again. And we'll have to come back for an ordinance for that just within the month or two. So
Yeah, because I know that not only the 10 building, but there must be some updates or upgrades that you need done. So I'd be
Yeah.
interested in looking at that. because
absolutely. Yeah.
It's an asset that the city owns, and depending on what your lease specifies, it's an asset the city should be taking care of.
Right. And that's actually almost exactly the words of Andrew Hayes when we met with him recently. It was very helpful. So definitely could always use more allies though. So thank you for voicing that.
Right. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments for Pueblo Heritage Museum?
What is
Counselor
your,
Renner? Or sorry, Counselor Maestri?
what is your annual revenue?
Our annual revenue, I am not sure on the revenue, but I do know our annual budget is about 141,000. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So
So-
how much do you take in?
I have our number on the grants that we've taken in the last year and a half since January 2022. So I do have that number for you. But I can definitely follow up with the revenue for that exact number. And so for our amount from January 2022 to September 2023, in grants, which a lot of that was earmarked just for exhibits, is $103,000. And that includes some ARPA funds that we got as we were recovering, and almost, closing like many people did in 2020. So yeah, I definitely, Councilwoman Maestri can definitely follow up with that information so
Yeah,
I can find
Because
the
you're
revenue.
asking for 525% more than you've ever asked. in
Right. Yeah,
before.
I acknowledge that it's much,
And
much
the
more.
Mayor's only recommending you, and he built his budget at a $20,000
Right.
gift. So, and we're over on our budget, so. I would just-
Totally. Yeah,
Mhm.
I understand that it's very bold, and just being that we're what I see as a de facto museum of Pueblo, the only one that's specifically focused on Pueblo and the outlying regions. I think that it's a worthy ask as well. And so definitely willing to have another session to look deeper at that and finding some common ground, what could work for the ask. And the ask that I have still stands, and I appreciate your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I was born and raised in Pueblo, and it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago when I was invited to take a tour of the Pueblo Heritage Museum that I actually stepped inside. And I learned so much just specifically about Pueblo, to Moral's point, and where they keep all of the different exhibits and artifacts and things is literally in a tin shed in the back where you have to wear a mask, and it's like falling apart. And it would just be awful to lose our Pueblo history because we're not investing in a city asset that we ourselves own. So I would like to ask this council if we can move forward the 42,000 ask.
Well,
To move-
is that
hold on,
truly, oh,
hold
I'm
on.
sorry.
If we can move the $42,000 ask forward, I recognize that that's more than the budget committee has recommended. I know that that's more than the mayor has recommended. It's also 42,000 is the same amount that our friends at the Steelworks Museum are getting. So it would be a comparable amount, given that we're funding tourism, we're funding museums in our community. Counselor Maestri.
Well, let's just clarify, it's not a city asset. The building is a city asset. And as that city asset, that will require additional repairs, I guess, and remodeling for the exhibit. So that is money coming from the city already to preserve that building so that they could have their museum there. The museum itself is not a city asset.
I would say the history that they hold is an asset.
It's not a city asset. We don't have a contractual agreement with them like we do some of the others. I mean, let's just clarify.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate you bringing that up because one of my question was just planting a seed for the future is if you all would ever consider actually having the Pueblo Heritage Museum and Heritage Center become the official museum of Pueblo. So that's actually one of the questions I have. Feel free to answer it now or later, but I think that you have a really good point, Councilwoman, because the building is an asset, but we aren't. So we'd like to, like Councilman Martinez Ortega said, like to show how the history and the heritage that we keep there. And I invite you to come down and check it out. Truly is an asset that is intangible, I understand, but really brings a lot of value. And I know when people locally and traveling come see us are pretty much always astounded. And we have started tracking the numbers of people coming to us. And I've noticed that, about 60% of the people are actually from out of town. And what we want to work on is actually getting more people from town, but it does speak to that we do bring tourists here.
Counselor Flores?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I support Counselor Martinez's and your request of $42,000. If it's a question of assets, we don't own the building at Rocky Mountain Steelworks Museum. We neither own the assets of their building nor their artifacts. So here we have an example of being fair in the community, and I think you're worthy of the $42,000.
Council member Martinez Ortega?
Yes, I'm good for 42.
Okay, that's then, I guess, the question on the table, Mayor.
Let me just weigh in if I might. Wasn't until 2022 that the city actually gave this museum any money at all. I forgot how long they
Yeah, thank you for
existed.
bringing that up. Yeah.
Our administration provided them with some funds in 2022, and I think that was after some COVID money. But the city has subsidized the museum by, your rent is $1 a year?
At $10. Yeah, so
$10
that
a
has
year.
been, of course, helpful.
$10 a year, and that's what it's been. So, and they're a great museum. I've had a chance to visit. They've got a lot on display. But I think we're running a real risk here by moving the amount, doubling the amount that we've recommended from 20 to 42,000, given the budget situation that I expect we're going to have this year. So I just want to caution the council about that.
I would still like to have my offer on the table for 42,000. Councilor member Martinez Ortega?
Yes.
Counselor Graham? Counselor Tencio?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Counselor
I'm
Flores?
willing to risk 22,000. It's a yes.
Counselor Maestri?
No,
Counselor Winter? So that'll be adjusted in the budget, given that the majority of council is okay with 42,000.
Thank you so much. And just very, very grateful now. I understand there's things to figure out and we're totally here for you to give more information, have you come down so you can feel more comfortable with that investment that could be made.
well, yes,
Yeah.
I appreciate that because we had a request on the table from the chamber and they have to come with all of their financials to show us that, and they're asked and what exactly what they're asking for. And,
Right.
it would be nice to see how you're giving a free exhibit now when you guys are lacking in money. So that is that lease, Mayor, is $10 a year is what we lease that building for?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's probably fair market value, what, 5,000 a month?
That's probably about right.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Thank you.
absolutely generous.
Mhm.
And that day that we're having for Indigenous Fusion event is a 1-day free event in equity because we usually as an equitable act because we have for other cultural exhibits offered a free day for the first day.
Mhm.
And then I appreciate you calling in the things that I could bring for more preparedness. So I'd be happy to follow up in an email with some of those financial statements. And then my other question is if the mayor changes or leadership changes, would this funding potentially change?
So it's, so just very quickly, Maral, and then I know Counselor Flores has a question, but we're going through our budget process right now for the next year, fiscal year. So essentially, that's going to be the guiding document starting in January and then through December 2024.
Thank you.
Counselor Flores?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to let everybody know. I'm very familiar with the museum. I had a long-term relationship with the museum for a long time. I can't imagine putting a dollar amount on the amount of people that volunteer their time at the museum. I'm talking hundreds of hours, not only your board, but the people that volunteer to act as just accept people within it. And then, of course, the artifacts have to be cleaned. But I think the majority of the labor that goes into this museum is really done by volunteers, because there's your budget is very lean, very few employees. And here we have a situation where I can't even imagine the dollar amount you would put on that. But I think the citizens of the city should recognize, how a voluntary nonprofit organization operates, and how much assistance that you get, not only from your board, but all of the volunteers that, that keep that place going. So I think that's important to say.
Thank you so much for that acknowledgement. And just in closing, I appreciate all your time and also concerns. I do truly intend to follow up on all those. And just thank you so much for your time, and really grateful for you hearing us all today at the Pueblo Heritage Museum.
Thank you, Maral, and the Pueblo Heritage Museum.
Thank you.
We are going to move on. Our next speaker is Mr. Vaughn Cannon, and he is from Retail Strategies. I see him on Zoom. Oh, and Mr. Nava, you want to come to the podium according to Counselor Atencio? You want to set this up? Counselor Atencio is going to introduce this next work session presentation.
Scott, you're on.
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Nava and I went to the ICSC trade show in Las Vegas last May. And out of that came the idea that we need guidance in bringing retail stores to the city of Pueblo, whatever that retail store might look like, whether they're restaurants, that chain restaurants, chain retail stores. Out of this, Mr. Nava contacted Retail Strategies. Mr. Scott Von Cannon is going to give us a presentation on what his company does. And I'm going to ask that we retain this company to bring retail stores, the kind of retail stores that are up in Colorado Springs and Denver and every place else where we go to shop. Instead, bring them here so that we do our shopping right here in Pueblo. Mr. Van Cannon?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I believe I have a PowerPoint. I don't know if I need to share that on my end or you guys are going to put it on the screen from your end.
If you want to, I can't read this.
I'm glad to do it myself. I can do
If
that.
you want to, Mr. Von Cannon, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, let me get this pulled up. Bear with me here. Okay, let me make this full screen. Okay, just want to ensure that you guys can see my screen.
We can see it. It's like the slides. If you
Okay,
go to presentation mode.
got a few different screens here, so let me, bear with me, I apologize. Nope. This is the screen, correct?
Yeah, we see that too.
Okay, okay, just want to make sure.
Mhm.
Oh, why is it not doing full screen? Can you guys see a full screen?
No.
I'm sorry. When I make it full screen, it changes. Nope, not doing it. Let me do this. I'm gonna make
We can share the screen on our end, Mr. Von Cannon. Would that be easier?
So. How about that?
Nope.
Okay, give me 1 second. I need to
You
Okay.
got it. Way to go.
Okay, all right, I apologize. First off, council, thank you very much for your time this evening. I know you probably have a late night planned, so I will do my best to be brief. Again, thank you for your time. I work with Retail Strategies. Again, my name is Scott Von Cannon. Retail Strategies is a municipal consulting firm. We've partnered with over 850 communities across the country to help them either recruit new retail business, hospitality, hotel brands, and in some cases, we've helped with revitalizing and redeveloping their downtown and assisting small businesses. A little bit about myself. I'm the COO of the company. I've been with Retail Strategies coming on 11 years. Prior to my time with Retail Strategies, I was working in more traditional economic development consulting. But for the past 11 years, I have been strictly focused on assisting cities, bringing new retail shops and brands to drive the sales tax, to add needed jobs in the community, and to grow quality of life elements, as well as backfilling vacant commercial real estate assets and hopefully eliminating blight in communities with vacant retail businesses. I actually drove through Pueblo a couple months ago, spent a few hours driving through Pueblo, had some meetings. I met with Jeff Schott, Economic Development, some folks at the Chamber, and was really in awe of some of the really what I perceive as low-hanging fruit. Great real estate that either is underpositioned or does not have retail that essentially should be occupied by what I perceive as really a sales tax producing entity to help increase cash flow at City Hall. So what we're looking at here is just really a 30,000-foot view of how we work. We partner with cities, again, across the country. We come in first and we conduct a retail market analysis. And that is essentially taking a look at the analytics and the data that makes up Pueblo, Colorado in this instance. So we're looking at 23,000 variables from identifying who the consumers are, where they're shopping, if they're leaving Pueblo, where are they going, what retail categories seem to be doing well in the market, and where the demand is. Following the analytics side of our process, we come to the market and our real estate professionals conduct a boots on the ground tour of Pueblo. Again, I've already been to the market. I know the market fairly well, but we send real estate team leaders to the market to really sink our teeth into the real estate assets that are located in Pueblo. Following that, we have now taken a look at what the analytics and the data side of Pueblo looks like, and we kind of compare and contrast that to the real estate assets, and our team puts together a retail recruitment plan. Typically, that's done 90 days into our 3-year partnership, and that retail recruitment plan, again, is going to outline the data, the good, the bad, the ugly, the real estate assets that we see available, and it's going to highlight retail prospects that are currently active, that are growing, and that are looking for markets just like Pueblo to open new stores. Our job is to engage those growing and expanding retailers and work to get them to open stores in Pueblo, in this case, again, to grow taxes, to bring needed retailers and restaurants to the market, to bring jobs and boost quality of life elements as well. So again, a little bit about our company. We're industry leaders. All the retail logos you see on the screen, we've worked with those, and obviously many, many more. We've pretty much worked with any and all national retailer that you can think of, maybe minus some of the few kind of high-end top-tier retailers. Major markets don't need help attracting retail. We would primarily or most likely never work with a Denver or a Dallas or a Houston. Those kind of markets don't need our help. The Pueblos of the world need that assistance, getting exposure to retail brands that are active and looking looking to open new stores. We're very involved in retail trade organizations like ICSC, for instance. Lacey Beasley, our president, actually sits on the board of trustees for ICSC. So our involvement with ICSC, Retail Live, and other retail trade organizations allow us to get face time one-on-one with these growing retailers and allowing us to market communities who have partnered with us, like Pueblo, in order to open new locations. Diving a little bit deeper into the analytics, we really want to identify who the customer is, who the consumer is, and not only Pueblo, but the greater Pueblo area. We all know that consumers from surrounding communities are driving to Pueblo every day to get their goods and services. And at the same time, we also know that consumers in Pueblo are leaving the market, going to competing areas such as Colorado Springs to get services and products that are not offered in the market. So we really want to identify who they are, where they're growing, at what extent, what is this customized trade area? We might have a population of 100, 115,000 people, but really how many people are coming in to shop on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis here in Pueblo. We're running a peer analysis to identify communities across the country that look like Pueblo on paper. And then from that point, identifying retailers that have a propensity to open in markets similar to your community. We run a gap analysis to identify what are the gaps in the market, what retail categories are in high demand. Again, running those consumer behavior models, even to the point of a mobile data analysis, where we literally have the ability to track your consumers' cell phones to a degree, and identify where they're shopping. And that is great intel to share, with retailers that we are trying to entice to the market. So again, you might be thinking of Pueblo of a market, a community of 100, 120,000. But again, we're really looking at more of a customized trade area. We're probably pulling close to 250,000 people coming into the market, at least on a consistent basis. You can see here, we have a positive growth rate, which is always appealing to retailers looking to open new stores. And this just gives you a little bit of the insight on some of the data points that we're looking at. Again, stacking Pueblo up against the peers that have similar incomes, similar demographics, similar growth trajectory, similar proximity to larger markets like Colorado Springs, and then identifying the retailers that are in those peer communities but have yet to locate in Pueblo. And then again, leveraging our relationships with those retailers and their representatives to lure them to your market in order to open a store. The data and the analysis, it's super important, but when it comes to your tool belt, it's really more of the wrench. I tell a lot of our clients the real estate is really the hammer. You can use analysis, data to maybe get the interest of a retailer, but you're really never going to get them to open a store until you can really check all their boxes from a real estate standpoint. So a big part of our role, of our job, is to identifying those sites. Our team establishes relationships with the property owners in your community, with developers in the region, with brokers that represent the retailers, and the tenant reps as well. So we're spending a lot of our time, again, sinking our teeth into the market, identifying the sites that fit which retailers. And every retailer has a very specific set of criteria that they're looking for. They're looking to check all those boxes to mitigate risk and maximize revenue when they open a new store. So that's a big part of our role. So again, just showing a couple examples here. Obviously, a couple vacant Kmarts. When I drove the market a couple months ago, these jumped out like a sore thumb in the market. It looks like both of those have been vacant for quite some time. We've worked on a lot of Kmarts. Kmart's closed a lot of stores over the past 10 years. So I know this is a little fuzzy here, but just to show you one example, this is one of our client communities that had a vacant Kmart shopping center. And you can see in the before and after photo, some of the brands that we worked with. We worked with all those retailers. We actually worked with the development company that acquired that vacant shopping center. We worked a public-private partnership on that deal to make the economics work. And then we're able to recruit higher and better use national retailers to close some of the retail gaps in the market. Obviously, the mall in Pueblo, I would imagine, would be an area of focus. We have a vacant big box in the mall. This is not unique to Pueblo. A lot of malls are struggling. Ironically, we actually share our office building with the owning entity that owns the mall in Pueblo. So we know those folks very well. They're about a 30-second walk from my office to their front door. So we already have a great relationship with that group, but we would be, again, working with the owning entity to identify tenants to backfill vacant spaces. Some of the out parcels in the mall are currently vacant. So I certainly see some low hanging fruit there. Again, another example where we took a mall. I think this is one of our clients in Virginia, backfilling in that case with more of a an entertainment type of retailer, which again was really what that particular client was looking for in backfilling that big box space at their mall. So the way our partnership works, again, we're very involved with the community. We can't do our job without our partnership with the city, and in some cases it's the chamber or the economic development. You guys are the local experts. You have your feet on the street. We really perceive ourselves as the outside experts, as the ones with the relationships with the developers, brokers, and retailers, again, to leverage those and with the knowledge that we have learned working with you and partnering with you to grow sales tax, bring jobs, and bring needed retail to the market. We have a fabulous and phenomenal marketing team that makes you guys and us look good as well. We attended or will have attended 59 trade shows in 2023. We're going to these trade shows on behalf of our clients, again, sitting down with decision makers, with the national retailers, their developers, and the brokers that represent them. Again, marketing not only our communities, but specific sites that we have pre-vetted that make sense for those retailers. So we have all kind of deliverables, a marketing guide to the community, site flyers that we're using at these trade shows. And then that is really one way that we're attracting those retailers. We have a retail recruitment team. And again, their job all day, every day is to reach out to retailers on that prospect list and position real estate sites in your market. We're a team of roughly about 75, but from the marketing team to the portfolio director, who's really just communicating with the client on a consistent basis, and our recruitment team, this is roughly about what your team looks like. So you've got a large team behind you. We really look at ourselves as an extension of economic development in your community and our other communities, but we are focused on retail. That's the world we live in. That is our expertise, and that's where our relationships lie. So that is certainly our background. And again, our job is to boost the sales tax through retail wins. Colorado, we work in a lot of states across the country. The state of Colorado is very unique, and I would personally say fortunate in the fact that a lot of the cities keep a large portion of the sales tax. So it makes up a large portion of every city's budget. So a single retailer like Chick-fil-A, for instance, can create $150,000 a year in revenue directly to the city's budget just from existing in Pueblo. I know I used an example. You guys have a Chick-fil-A, but just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like from an ROI standpoint. So I'm going to stop there in the sake of time, and certainly here to answer any questions for you guys.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Mr. Nava, do you have any things to say?
Sure. When talking to Scott, this is a little bit of my background. So I was asking, what does success look like with this company? Can you hit on that, Scott? I thought that was important.
Yeah.
At least council to hear when it's the price tag of $50,000 a year for over the course of 3 years.
Sure. Well, I'd love to tell you guys in every city that hires us that we're going to come in and revolutionize your community and bring every retailer in the first 12 months. The reality is the timeline of an average transaction in the retail real estate industry is somewhere between 18 and 36 months. So we do come in asking for a 3-year commitment and a 3-year partnership. That first year, that is our opportunity to get Pueblo out there. We're going to be at trade shows. We're going to be calling on brokers and developers. Again, really getting your name in front of the retailers that we know are expanding and looking for markets like yours. So, I tell most clients, if you give us 3 years, we have a pretty darn good batting average, probably about 99%. We're going to have pretty substantial wins after a 3-year period. But candidly, I would expect somewhere in our second year of partnership where we are working on actual deals in your market, trying to close those transactions. If that gives some indication.
Sure, I think the other thing of importance was, 50,000 a year, over, so 150,000 over the course of 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think you can hire a staff member at 50,000 a year to do this work, especially to the level that this company can perform that.
And that was my idea, is to hire a staff member to do that work, but you're absolutely right. We couldn't hire someone for that amount of money to do this kind of work. And our constituency is begging for more retail in this city, and we're not getting it. So we need a consultant like this to help us.
Yeah, I think anytime you can have somebody out there promoting Pueblo as a community and a destination for some of these retailers, just to put it in perspective, Colorado Chamber did a study. I don't remember the exact numbers, so if I'm off a couple, please forgive me, but I think we used to be 9th in the country on states to do business in, and now we're like 47th in the country of states to do business in. So we are getting a very bad rep out there with these big box retailers we make it difficult for them to do business in Colorado. So anytime we can have somebody out there promoting us and advocating for us and bringing them to the table, I think it's a big win for Pueblo.
Yeah, and retail strategies would be working through the chamber.
Whatever you need.
Other questions or comments from council? Counselor
Also,
Maestri?
is the chamber funding it through their proceeds that they get,
No,
or?
we'll be funding it through the city.
Mhm. And, I'm sorry, what was her guest's name, Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Scott.
Mr. Von Cannon, I was looking at your retailers that you partner with, and I counted more than 20 we already have. Do you have
Mhm.
more than just what you had listed on the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Those are merely examples I mean, brands that off the top of my head that I noticed aren't in your market, that I think should be Five Below, Sprouts, guys like Dave and Buster's, Cheddar's, Bonefish, Raising Cane's, Cava. I don't think I saw Firehouse Subs, which really caught my attention. Five Guys, Cheesecake. I mean, some of these brands that a lot of those that I just named, of course, we have relationships with them, but they're very active. They're growing. And I was candidly shocked at some of the brands that were not in your market just driving through Pueblo. But yeah, I'm sorry, that slide is just merely an example of a handful that we've worked with.
And I guess from the city's perspective, we probably have to try to reduce the shoplifting rate as quickly as we could in order to invite retailers in, because that seems to be a big drawback, those numbers. So I think I guess we have work on our side to do, in order to invite these types of companies in, because they always say we don't have a grocery store on the east side because of shoplifting, and don't know, we have to be,
No, just wouldn't make it.
we have to make ourselves desirable for them to come in. And are you going to be using existing commercial buildings, or do you plan on doing new commercial buildings? Because I hear that's the big downturn in the market right now, commercial space.
Yeah, good
Is gonna
question.
and it's dropping through, and it's, the big investors are saying, don't invest in commercial space anymore. Turn to residential development and take out commercial development.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both to answer your question. Every retailer is going to be different. They're going to be unique. I mentioned Chick-fil-A merely as an example. You're rarely going to see Chick-fil-A take existing space. They're going to want to build their prototype new store. They're going to need 2 acres. They're going to need the room for their double drive-through. You have other retailers that would prefer to find existing, what we refer to as second generation space, to keep their costs down. Cost of construction is becoming more and more difficult. Cost of new development is becoming more and more difficult. A lot of it because of rising interest rates and just the overall general cost of construction. But, you know, I hear that a lot. And acknowledge there are certainly challenges with ground up, but we're still seeing projects coming out of the ground every single day. So is it becoming more difficult? Absolutely. But is it still occurring? Absolutely. And we're also finding cities are again, a lot of these states, depending on their bylaws, have the ability to provide incentives, again, if it's needed, to help close the economic gap on a deal, to create a new store or maybe a new shopping center that otherwise just can't pencil out with the cost and interest rates that we're seeing right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Oh, sorry, Mr. Nava.
Just one last point I'd like to make, you know, with $150,000 of tax revenue, let's just say a Chick-fil-A at $6 million. And I know President Graham was, I think, doing the math on her phone, hopefully. I don't know if it was close, but I mean, that's 1 year, it's paid off, that investment. And you're making that tax revenue in perpetuity after that, as long as that business is in our city. So I just think it's a great investment for the city of Pueblo.
I did have a quick question, Mr. Von Cannon. Do you work with any other community in Colorado?
Yes, we do. For instance, Fountain up the road is a client, not up the road, but Fountain in the Colorado Springs here is a client of ours.
It is up the road.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you know, I say all the time, I feel like on this council, think bigger, Pueblo. And this is it. So
Thank you.
other questions or comments?
And
I think
just
we
for
do-
councils, I'm sorry, just for councils, the chamber's not looking for an admin fee or anything like this. We would really only be the point of contact for this organization, just to be able to come back and report to council on where we're at.
Councilor Martinez Ortega, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think this is a good idea and something that that we need, like where there's a gap in going out and recruiting some of these folks. I think I'm more apt to start with a 2-year contract as opposed to 3. But other than that, I think it's a good idea.
So do we need to provide direction to staff then, Mr. Atencio, or to include it in the budget? What is?
Yes,
Right.
that's
Direction
my
of
answer
staff?
for
Okay.
today, yeah. And a 2-year contract, like the Mr. Van Cannon said, the initial contacts with these people is going to be 36 months by the time we get a store in here. So if we do a 2-year contract, by the time we get a store in here, so 36 months is much better. 3-year contract is much better.
Mr. Flores?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. What I was interested in is the potential of the outlying smaller communities being able to, for the city of Pueblo to be able to attract them to come, you know, to our community and have them spend their money here. So assuming that you're successful and you get 2 or 3 stores to come to Pueblo, open up, do you have a different strategy in how you deal with the outlying areas? Do you get involved in that, in the market of these stores and their knowledge now that there are other options in Pueblo, so that we start directing them here and they're not going to Colorado Springs?
Right. I do. Yes, sir. I do think that is a natural occurrence of having those wins. And I'm glad you brought it up. You're going to have, at this moment, consumers that are making the decision whether to drive to Pueblo or to Colorado Springs. And it might be a single brand that is pulling them to Colorado Springs. Let's say, I'll just use Five Guys Burgers and Fries, for instance. It could be, you know, Cheddar's, what have you. And so not only are you losing that consumer to Colorado Springs in this instance, but they're also going to fill up their car. They're probably going to run to Walgreens or CVS and pick up maybe a prescription or you know, go through there. So it's that additional, what we call leakage, that is really the killer when you're losing those consumers to a competing market. And so I do believe that with some of these name brands that do attract people into a community, once you land some of those, you're going to have some consumers that are now choosing Pueblo due to a retail brand in the market that otherwise was not there.
Thank you.
Counselor Maestri?
I have one more question. Since you've been out here and you've taken a look at everything, could you tell us just for our knowledge, why we have the retail center up on the north side, which houses Ulta and Kohl's and so forth? What do you think we've done wrong there? Because we seem to have businesses in and out of there all the time, and we have vacant businesses in there now. What is that? Because that was, that's a pretty big retail area. What do you think what do you think's gone wrong there? Because we've had some big boxes pull out of there and change and so forth. He's frozen. Mm-hmm.
Mayor, did you have anything to add while he's,
Yeah.
otherwise he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And we lost him. Mayor, did you have anything?
Well, no, I was just gonna ask a question. I was gonna ask a question about some of these retailers. I've been led to believe that with some of these chains, that it's a question of population. That they just simply draw a circle around the place, and if there's enough people there, they'll come there. If there's not, they won't. I don't think it matters what the community has to offer. If the population is not there to support it, Panera Bread is one, for instance, that I think I've heard that about. I was just going to inquire of him, are there others in that category that say, we just won't come to a spot unless there's a certain number of people that live there or that trade there? So.
Yes. Counselor Winter?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest problem is the lack of population. We need more people to live here. I would feel a lot more comfortable if this was run through Pedco, an arm of the city. And I think Pedco personnel should be taking the reports and reporting to us. They can do it if we ask them to do it, sure. Why couldn't they do that, Nick?
I have not talked to them about this at all. My thought was if.
I think that's a lot more appropriate. I think it should come out of their budget as well.
Come out of where?
Their budget.
Out of Petco's budget?
Absolutely. They've got enough
I
money.
probably think there's some reasons why they think they couldn't do it that way, but.
I'm sure they do, but they have plenty of money.
But my thought was if we wanted the chamber to do it, we just add another $150,000 to the chamber's budget, let them contract with them, and that would be it.
Well, they're not
That's
going
the
to want
easiest way.
it.
50 a year over the
Yeah.
course of 3 years. I don't have the dog in the fight either way. I just feel like this is good for Pueblo to have this company doing this work for us.
Well,
Counselor Winter?
Just to reiterate, I'm not comfortable at all with that, running it through you, but Pedco I am.
Pedco don't do that work.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Solano. And then Counselor Maestri.
well, whoever we give it to is going to want an administration fee, I'm sure. They're 10% or 20% or whatever they want to make a cut and to administer it, wouldn't they?
No, Pedco.
We would not.
Mhm.
Business, so to speak.
Chamber's gonna do.
Ms. Solano?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I was just wanting to follow standard city practices with respect to procurement and run this past our purchasing director. I'm not certain that it qualifies as sole source, or does it really need an RFP? I also think we need to make sure we do some due diligence with respect to securing some of their financial information. I'd like to see some references, particularly from Fountain, or suggest that we collect those for you. And then I think you've also answered some of those questions if instead the city and you agree to transfer those, the responsibility and the resources external to the city, I think that's a different story with respect to following procurement. But I think still the due diligence, I would
No,
like to
absolutely.
bring back to
Sure.
you.
Absolutely. That's exactly the way it should be done.
Great.
And I don't think that they would object to that.
So it sounds like then Ms. Lano will follow the procurement process as it relates to this contract. But the ask on the table is, can we move forward with this specific contract for retail strategies for 3 years? Counselor Winter? Right.
Yeah, more about it. And we certainly don't have to run it through Pedco either. It could just run through us and they could report to us. It's just more oversight.
But we definitely want to find out more information. That's that's on the
Yeah,
table.
that's
Counselor
fine.
Winter, Counselor Maestri. Counselor Flores, I'm a yes. Counselor Tencio, Counselor Graham, Counselor Martinez Ortega.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. So retail strategies, I see that you're online. We're going to move forward and have our Chief of Staff Solano to reach out to you to get a little bit more information from you. So that's our next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Because of time, I'm actually going to be postponing the City Council Board and Commission update for probably next meeting or the meeting after that. And then that'll take us to the 2024 budget work session follow-up. Before us, we have the printout of the slides. So Mayor and Ms. Solano and Ms. Romero, take it away.
Yeah, let me start off and just by giving you a heads up that as we continue to work through this budget, you're going to see in the final budget proposal that comes from my office a plan to combine the planning department and the housing department into one. It'll be a planning and community development department. We think that by doing this, that there will be better coordination with housing goals if we have housing and planning in one area. Be better coordination in identifying infill projects within the city. Obviously, housing is interrelated to planning and community development. And we hopefully believe that this will help accelerate housing development in the city of Pueblo by bringing these two departments together and expediting some projects there. So we think it'll reduce the time period for reviewing and approval of some of these projects. And housing will be intimately involved with the zoning and land use rewrites that are taking place and the accessory dwelling unit changes that that we're working on. So we're still working on the details of this. The housing director would probably become the housing manager in the planning department. But I just wanted to give you that heads up. And with that brief introduction, I'll turn it over to Alex or Laura. Laura?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair and City Council. You do have a printout of this slide deck. We weren't certain with respect to how much time you might have in order to start the City Council meeting at 7. So when time truncates, we're prepared to pick up back up tomorrow. But the next slide, please, if you drive for me. I wanted to start with Councilor Flores's request for a reminder of the economic dashboard and a request for some additional budget funding in 2024. In the economic dashboard was brought to the attention of City Council in 2021 with a proposal asking for the 2022 budget to include $183,000. Of that amount, it was to be made up of the development of the dashboard, the monthly dashboard updates, $8,000 for train and a handoff of the dashboard, and outreach to build out the Pueblo workforce asset map. So that was approved by city council. And then the resources that were expended in 2022 is the next section down. The 8,000 and the 30,000 were not expended in at the closure of the 2022 budget. Those revert back to fund balance without having been tapped into. So in 2022, there was an outflow of develop the dashboard for 90,000 and the monthly dashboard updates for 55,000. That was to run through March of 2023. However, next slide, please. What we did was reassess the reports that were coming from Dr. Bailey and the content of them, and determined that the modification council did approve last year the change in the amount for by quarter, and the contract was approved through ordinance 10-398 as an amendment that went through December of 2023 for a quarterly $17,500 fee. That's a professional services fee, or $87,500, as the first one was taken from the 2022 budget that was paid in the first quarter of 2023. And now action requested of Councilor Flores is the bottom part of that slide, which is a new action requested of adding to the 2024 budget, reinstating with your approval the $30,000 outreach for Pueblo Workforce Asset Map that will be utilized by external. It will go external to the city for implementation, and the $8,000 train and handoff that was intended to hand off and train to either of the two four-year colleges and two-year college in the city. And then also the opportunity to go one more quarter into 2024 for 17,500 prior to, I think, the intended handoff. So Councilor Flores's request of City Council is the approval of 55,500 that is not currently in the 2024 budget. And I will hand off to Councilor Flores for filling in any of the gaps I missed.
I think you did an excellent job. I just want to remind the council that when we initiated the ordinance, it was always intended to include this 55,000. And what had happened is that because of our starting the dashboard in April 1st of 22, we only had 9 months left in that year. So each year we had to come back. And then last year, we had the whole year last year, but we still had 3 months left over from January 1 through April 1. So I'm not adding anything that this council had not approved previously. It was just that it overlapped over a 3-year period. And that's the way the accounting department wanted to do it previously. And that's the way Dan Kagosic, our legal counsel at that time, wanted to segregate it over this 3-year period. So that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. And with that update, we'll add it to tomorrow. If there's additional questions, council wants to look at that or come back with clarifying questions before we end tomorrow's budget work session, asking for your direction, unless you're comfortable to share it now, and we'll go ahead and add it this evening. I think we've got, well, Alex is here. I'm not sure about her team, but we can wait and do that tomorrow, or we can take that direction this evening if you're ready.
I think let's wait till tomorrow is the vibe that I'm seeing on council. I just have a quick question, and maybe it's for Councilor Flores, maybe it's for Ms. Lano. I thought that dashboard was going to get handed off to Pedco.
It is. We had 9 months in 2022. We had 12 months last year. It was a 2-year period. So there's 3 months left, January 1 to April 1 of 24. And that's all I'm asking for, is to add. The original ordinance was for the city to take this task on and to get the ball rolling on it for only a 2-year period. That 2-year period will not expire until April 1 of 24. So, and then my goal was to engage the business community that it was something that we need. But I didn't want to burden the city with this forever. So it was just a 2-year period. Now we can hand it off to Petco or, you know, I mean, we could hand it off to the university too. But I mean, my plan right now is to hand it off to Petco.
Mayor, did you have?
Well,
anything?
there aren't any plans to hand it off to anybody there at this point, there are there? Have any efforts been made to get the
yes.
business there happen?
Yeah, at our last Petco meeting, I brought it up and Jeff Shaw and I, you know, we have until now, you know, probably sometime in February to hand this off. And they have all agreed to, we haven't officially passed anything through Petco. But again, the city is only responsible for this till April 1. If it evaporates and it goes away, that's the end of it. But my goal, and Petco right now is using that dashboard in their recruitment. PCC has used it to some extent as far as the information having to do with the workforce gap in trying to align some of their classes to more cover the jobs that we have open in the city of Pueblo.
Doesn't the city's contract with Dr. Bailey end in December of this year?
Yeah, it will be extended through April 1.
If this passes, but we could just hand it off in December, right? To somebody else.
You know, the original ordinance was to keep this intact until April 1. It wasn't intended to expire on December 31. It was the actual ordinance passed for a 2-year period from April 1 of 22 through April 1 of 24. The ordinance always was for a 2-year period. I think am I right on that?
Councilor Flores and Mr. Mayor, I'd have to go back and confirm what the ordinance says. The ordinance numbers were there and I don't have them in front of me. It was addressed the resources for the annual year, but I'm not sure if it addressed the time frame to
Yeah,
extend it.
the ordinance had the time frame because my goal all along was not to perpetuate something that the city government would have been chained with forever. My intent, like most communities do, the business community takes it over. But it was never going to happen unless we got the ball rolling.
Mayor, did you have anything else?
Well, obviously, this creates a problem if the contract with Dr. Bailey terminates on the 31st of December. That would be an opportune time for somebody else to take it over. Otherwise, we'll, I guess, have to do a contract for 3 months.
This was really our legal department at that time.
Right.
And I had this discussion with Dan and he indicated the contracts had to be for just the period in the calendar year that the city runs their budget. So
it was my understanding somebody was going to take it over next year. But
no, the goal was never that somebody was going to take it over December 31. It was to take it over on April 1 of 24. That was always the case. And we could look at the ordinance again and we'll have that opportunity
Tomorrow. Yeah, so Ms. Lana, if you want to bring that tomorrow. And then I will remind my fellow counselors that we'll be talking about the remainder of this packet. Or the slides tomorrow at tomorrow's finalish work session regarding the budget.
I just have one question
Counselor
before
Maestri.
we finish. So what you're saying, Dennis, is, because I would think that if we're this close to the end of the contract, I mean, we would have we don't have a firm contract in place on who's going to take it over. We don't have a firm commitment from anybody that's going to take it over.
Dr. Bailey is going to continue.
Well, no, I'm talking about once that by April, we don't have a firm commitment on who's going to take it over.
You know, we're working on that right now. We're talking about 5 months away. I will be working on that to transfer it over.
Mhm.
And if it is, there's no risk here to the city. If I don't accomplish it and then it's over. But I've had several discussions with.
But we've invested a lot of money, so obviously if we'd want to pull it forward, we'd want to make sure that we've put this money into it, and that's why I'm wondering, we don't have any agreements on the table with anyone yet?
Just verbal with Petco. You know, I've
Yeah.
served on that board for 4 years and
Yeah, because
there-
right now you're asking us to invest another 55,500. I'd like to know that we have a commitment in front of that before we invested it. That's all. Thank you.
So we'll learn more about it tomorrow. And pick up the rest of the budget negotiations tomorrow
Okay.
as well.
all right.
All right, so then I conclude this work session at 6:54. We're gonna take a brief 10-minute recess before we pick up the regular meeting at around 7:05.
Was that the other thing on this budget? That we were going to do?
No, but I'm putting it off.